Okay, so welcome everyone to our special meeting of Monday, October 19th. As everyone is aware, last week on the 12th, we had a regular scheduled meeting, and due to the findings of the Supreme Court, our ability to have virtual meetings got taken away for an interim period. Over the past week, our legislature figured that out, how to put that back into play, and the governor signed that Friday evening. So this special meeting was posted on or with over 18 hours notice, but it will go down as a special meeting on our official record. So with that, I'll call the meeting to order and ask everyone to stand and please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it stands, one nation,
under God, indivisible,
indivisible,
liberty and justice
for
for all.
all.
You guys, we could make Julie the leader of the pledge, and if we just followed her, it would be a lot better than what we're doing.
All right.
I'm being serious. No, I'm being serious. I can hear her voice through everybody else, and it'd be easy to follow her.
Sounds good. We'll try it.
Pledge leader.
We'll try it next week. So Julie, get ready. Please. Please.
All right. Thanks, Julie.
You're welcome.
Good suggestion. Okay. Item B on the agenda is our roll call. And I was informed by our city manager Nichols that according to an MML briefing that they listened to, everybody tonight has to state where they are dialing in from virtually.
And that they're participating remotely.
And that they're participating remotely.
Okay.
So when Carol, when you go through and call people's names, just give them a chance to
Okay.
to mention that stuff, and then if you could make note of it, please.
Sure. Are we ready?
Yes, please.
Okay, Councilmember Bell.
Present. I'm participating remotely from my basement
Dexter, Michigan.
in Dexter, Michigan. Yeah, it's the only basement.
Thank you, Scott. Right. You may have other
It's gonna take
estates.
a while just to
Other
take this
places.
all down.
Yep.
Yes.
Councilmember Cousins.
Paul Cousins, I'm participating remotely from 76484, and I'm sitting on my settee here in the great room.
Oh, I just get your address. I think that'll do it.
All right.
That's okay.
Anything you want to put out?
Just the city
Yeah,
and state.
you
is
can
fine.
say what you want, but I'll just go with where the basics.
That's okay.
Councilmember Fisher.
Yes, I'm at 3035 Inverness in Dexter in my home.
Got it. Councilmember Knight.
Here, I'm participating remotely from 150 Jeffords Suite 207, Dexter, Michigan.
Okay. Councilmember Michelle.
I am participating remotely tonight from 3325 Dover in the original plat of Dexter Village.
Gotta get that part in there.
I'll get you the lot number for next meeting.
Okay, yeah, and then follow that with your property ID, and then we'll be all set. Councilmember Smith.
Yes, I'm participating remotely from 7765 Forest Street in Dexter.
Student Rep Gilbert.
I'm participating remotely from Dexter, Michigan.
Okay. And I did not see Student Rep Isabel Malik yet, did I?
Mm-mm.
Okay. And Mayor Keogh.
Good evening. I'm participating remotely from Auburn, New York.
John, can
Hey.
you turn your
Yeah.
computer a little bit, there, that's it. There we are. Now I can see all of you.
I was trying to be like my favorite council member, Michelle's there.
I got you.
I was just gonna go like this.
It was more like Wilson from Home Improvement.
Oh, there you go, half the face. Got it, okay,
Mhm.
got it.
And for our recording secretary, I'm in the western half of lot 7 of block 8.
Thank you.
I had a feeling you were gonna look that up. Nicely
Right.
done. Okay, we're down to item C, approval of the meeting minutes from our regular city council meeting on September 28th, 2020. Jim Smith has his hand up.
Yes,
Jim?
I'll move to approve the minutes of September 28th, 2020.
I will
Motion by Smith.
second.
Okay, second by Knight. Thank you for waving your hand there. Great.
You're welcome.
Okay, Mr. Smith, any comments on the minutes?
I have no corrections.
Okay, Ms. Knight, anything to change or modify?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Other council members? Seeing no hands or hearing no voices. Ms. Jones, please call the vote to approve the meeting minutes.
Okay, Michelle,
Yes.
Knight,
Yes,
Smith,
Yes,
Bell,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes,
Cousins,
Yes,
Keo.
Yes. Thank you. Motion carries. We did not have, even though the agenda lists that we did not have Ms. Jennifer Olmsted from Ann Arbor Spark tonight. We will ask her to attend a future meeting to cover that item. So we're down to item E, which is approval of the agenda. And just to clean up, if I can ask, I see Jim Smith has his hand up, but to clean up, we do not need item L2 this evening, which was the setting of the public hearing for property to DDA. So if whoever makes the motion could remove that item, I'd appreciate it. Courtney will explain more under her report.
I'll make the motion to approve the agenda minus the new business
Hold on.
item.
Hold on, Paul, I had recognized Jim with his hand up.
Oh, sorry, okay, well, then I'll second it.
Donna has her hand up too.
All right, good one.
Okay,
Let me let Jim make the motion, then we can go from there.
right. The first thing I'd like to make some amendments to the agenda. Under I-7, I would like us to remove both of the council member reports. Looking at Zach's information, it would be more appropriate under communications, as council has not requested his visits to the various fire stations and shouldn't be presented as a report back to council. Paul's information is a council document of record, not a report from an individual council member. Having it appear once as a reminder was fine. However, repeating it every meeting is not necessary. Under new business, I'd like to remove L1. At this time, it's not needed as the interlocal agreement is intact and the Dexter station is designated as the main station. I'd like to remove L2 as requested and remove L6 from tonight's agenda and place it on the agenda for October 26, 2020.
Okay, so motion by Smith to approve the agenda with the removal of I-7 and remove L1 and L2 under new business and move L6. Hold on, I'm scrolling down. Move L6 to the meeting on October 26th. Did I get that correct?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. You're welcome. Okay, Ms. Fisher, your hand's up.
yes, I'll second unless Paul wanted to second.
No, I don't want to second it. Not
Okay.
knowing all that stuff.
Okay, I'll do it then.
Okay. All right. So motion by Smith, second by Ms. Fisher. Any discussion?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Michelle's.
I guess my first question is, I'm going to call it the Smith rule. Are we as council members and mayor then only going to be allowed in the future to report on things that council has requested us to report on? Because that hasn't been the practice ever in any of the mayor's reports in the past 5 years or any of ours. And I think that that's an incredible precedent to pull out of thin air like that. So I don't think pulling out information that council members have put because we haven't requested them to go out and report on it is not appropriate. And so I will be voting against this agenda.
Okay. Mr. Smith, any comment or question or back or no? Okay. Other council member discussion?
I guess, are we going to pull the parts of the mayor report that we didn't specifically request him to report to us on as well, using the Smith rule?
I think that's, this is Paul. I think that's a rhetorical question. I just don't understand why Mr. Smith did not have the courtesy to call me as a council member or Zach as a council member to inform me that he's going to do this. These are individual decisions that we have an opportunity to make as individual citizens and as individual council people. And for us to be stifled like this because he doesn't want to deal with it, to me is abhorrent and doesn't make any sense at all. First of all, when I put that in and it reminded people, which he said it was okay for one, that was in response to something that the mayor had said that I thought was in conflict with that process we have as a rule for council behavior. And subsequently, since then, he has done that a number of times. And I called him the last time on it, and he explained why he did it, but that didn't stop him from doing it this time. And so until that is stopped, I will continue to remind every time the mayor or anyone else that violates that they violate that order, that decision that we made as a council member for council rules. And to leave it out now is, in my opinion, a stifling of freedom of speech. And I'm disappointed in you, Jim, that you would do that and that you didn't talk to me first and to indicate to me that you were going to do it.
Ms. Fisher, you have your hand up?
I do. I don't think that this stops anybody from communicating. I think he moved it from the section that it was in. And quite frankly, sometimes this stuff feels to me like I'm in some kind of a battle between personalities, and I don't want to referee anybody. I just want to come to the council meeting, do what I need to do, be informed. And so I don't mind this at all because, like I said, it seems to me like the issue is between Sean and a couple of you, or maybe more that haven't spoken, but I think that's better handled in private.
I move to.
I don't mean to offend anybody. I'm done.
I move to strike a portion of the mayor's report titled New Business Item L1 and council members report on September 28, 2020 mayor report from the report section and place it in the communication section.
Can you just repeat it for me, Zach? You moved to strike the portion from the mayor's report from September 28th?
It's the section titled New Business Item L-1 and council member reports on my September 28th, 2020 mayor report. Strike it from the report section and add it to the communication section.
Okay, is there a second for that? Okay, seeing no second, that motion to do that fails? Or doesn't come to the table? Mr. Smith, you have your hand up. We're still discussing the original motion to approve the agenda as you made it.
Well, I didn't decide to do these until shortly here before the meeting. And I, welcome the information from Zach about the fire stations. I just feel that it's be more appropriate either to send it to us individually in an email or to put it under communications for us to read. As it appears in the council member report, I believe it gives the appearance of something that Councilmember Michelle has been asked to do and is reporting back to council on. There's nothing, I'm not against Zach going out and getting this information. I actually appreciate the information, but I just don't feel that's the intent of our council member reports. And I still feel that the council rules are a document of record and are not an individual report and do not need to keep appearing every meeting.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Not seeing any other hands.
This is Paul again. Paul again, please.
Okay,
Yeah.
Paul, sorry. Okay.
No, it's no problem, Sean. The issue that that Mr. Smith brought up said he just thought about it before the meeting here. And I would dare say that there wasn't a lot of thought put into it. And if he wants to change the process, he ought to bring that up so that we can discuss it in a session before the motion to remove it. That was appropriate. So we would have a fair heads up to be able to discuss it, and just throw it at us right now and blindside us is in my opinion, irresponsible and not in the best practices of council members.
Are you all set, Paul?
I am, thank you.
Okay, Ms. Fisher, you have your hand up?
Yes, I just want to bring go back a few, I think it's been a few months that I suggested that the council rules are norms and you can't make anybody do anything. We should be aware and we should be kind. I did bring that up at a council meeting. And Mr. Cousins was angry with me when I did that. And then we just stopped the discussion. So I did say it, it bothered me too. So that's my opinion for what it's worth.
Well, let me jump in for a second, Donna, if you're done.
I am.
At the last meeting, when I gave my report, I was trying to explain something that happened at DAFD, okay, and tie it into what it made me think about. Okay, I did not in any way, shape, or form in that message to you or the community when I spoke on the virtual meeting there 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago now. I did not indicate that I was trying to, first of all, take firefighters away from the fire hall or abandon the fire hall. And that is what was suggested when Councilmember Michelle submitted his report. And in reviewing the report as part of the packet agenda, I tried to reach out to Zach ahead of time prior to submitting my report this time. And Zach wasn't able to get back to me until after we had to go to printing with the packet. He and I did talk a week ago Sunday. Okay, and I have tried, even though I might have told the story about my participation on the DAFD meeting and bringing to light the topic about the existing fire station, I have tried to be very respectful of the actions that this council has taken. I did not in any way, shape, or form suggest that any action that's taken is inappropriate and that we shouldn't follow through on that if it goes that direction. I don't, and Paul, you used the word poison with me last time when I spoke. And you're suggesting violating things, but all I was doing is giving a report that came off of the heels of a DAFD meeting and trying to make sure that all of you were aware of what was said there, what it made me think about. So I apologize again to all of you. I am not trying to turn back the clock on what this council has done. I'm proud of this council and what we've discussed and who we are as a community. I think, you know, I think we have some healing to do, okay, on some of these things. We ought to be able to talk to each other and express our opinions a little bit about some things in a way without it being a back and forth. And I only added what was in my report on this topic after trying to reach out to Zach, okay, prior to the packet going out. I tried to do that privately. I'm happy to talk about it publicly if anybody wants to keep going. But, well, I'll leave it at that and see where this goes. But so the motion, as I understand it on the table, has been to move the council member reports to communications, to remove L1 and L2 and move L6 to the October 26th council meeting. Jim, I see your hands up.
Yeah. I would move Zach's report to the communications. Paul's, the council rules, I don't think need to go anyplace. They can be just removed.
Okay. Is that okay with you, Ms. Fisher?
Yes,
Okay. So the motion now is, the motion as clarified is to move Councilmember Michelle's to communications, to remove item L1 and L2, and postpone or push item L6 out a week until October 26th.
I do have one last point, not on the reports.
Fair enough.
Question for staff. Is there a reason why we don't have scheduling a public hearing for the conflict of interest ordinance on this agenda? I know I can't hold the public hearing, but can we set a date for the public hearing tonight?
We could. It was a little hard for us to get this packet done with all the changes and the not knowing when it was going to be. And we could have done that, but we were trying to make as minimal changes as we could to get it out. As you saw, Justin sent it in the
Gotcha.
middle of the night. So, I mean, it can be set if you want to add it to consent to set it for the second meeting in November. It's fine. I mean, this was just a challenging 2 weeks of uncertainty.
All right. Well, if it doesn't cause distress, then I would move to add that to the consent agenda, setting of the public hearing for the conflict of interest to the second meeting in November.
I'll accept that amendment.
Donna, you okay?
yeah,
Okay. All right. So that's good. So that is, that ends up being, hold on a second. So that will be J5, then we'll be setting a public hearing for, what's the date then, the 23rd?
Yeah.
For setting public hearing for November 23rd for the conflict of interest ordinance.
Right.
Okay. All right. Excellent.
Which is the same as if we would have done it on the 26th. We would have set it for the 23rd.
Yep. Okay. No problem. We'll take care of it. Okay, Ms. Jones, can you
Yes.
please call the roll or the vote?
Yes. Bell,
Yes.
Cousins,
No,
Michelle,
Nope.
Smith,
Yes.
Fisher,
yes,
Knight,
No.
and Keo.
Yes, motion carries. We are now down, so thank you. We have an agenda. We did not have a public hearing this evening, so we're down to non-arranged participation. This is the first of 2 places on the agenda for anyone to speak if they wish to. If you're using the Zoom online here and want to raise your hand through the participant tab, please do so. I see we have 1 hand up. If you're calling in, you can, and listening out through your phone, you can dial *9, which will also flash your hand on our screen so we'll know you'd like to speak. So Jamie Griffin, welcome.
Hello.
Justin, if you could unmute Jamie, thank you.
Hi.
Good
Okay,
evening.
this looks good. Hi. My name is Jamie Griffin. I live at 463 Preston Circle, and I am calling in from there, but I don't know that you need to know that detail. I appreciate that you did just address the public hearing for the conflict of interest ordinance. That was sort of an outstanding question I had at the beginning of my statement, so I'm happy to see that it will be back on the agenda to be rescheduled. Last week, Sunday, I emailed all of you, the entire council, a statement I plan to make at the public hearing that was scheduled for last Monday, along with supporting documentation. And because I haven't heard back from anybody regarding that statement, I'm here tonight to formally read that statement into the record and to ask for your response. I think this might take a little bit longer than 5 minutes, but this topic is important to many people in the community, so I hope you'll bear with me on that. In October, and if anybody doesn't recall receiving the email or statement from me, please let me know. I'm happy to resend it. There's a quizzical look on your face. In October of 2018, City Manager Courtney Nichols joined the Faith in Action Board of Trustees. That same month, city staff met with Avalon Housing and Faith in Action to discuss Avalon's purchase of city-owned property at 7651 Dan Hoey Road for the purposes of constructing permanent supportive housing with supportive services provided by Faith in Action, as described in a memorandum of understanding between the 2 organizations dated January 4th, 2019, and a food pantry to be run by Faith in Action. Over the next couple of months, a committee comprised of Mayor Keough, council members Bell and Fisher, and Manager Nichols, on behalf of the city, met with representatives from Avalon and Faith in Action regarding the proposed development and land sale. In January 2019, council unanimously approved a purchase agreement between the city and Avalon, which was signed by Mayor Keough and Manager Nichols on February 1st, 2019. Notably, as confirmed by Mayor Keough in an email dated March 5th, 2019, Avalon and Faith in Action jointly approached the city about purchasing the particular parcel of land. The city did not consider selling any other city-owned property to Avalon, and the city did not seek out any other potential buyers. As the proposed project developed, Manager Nichols continued to sign legal documents, prepare meeting packets, and participate in public meetings regarding the sale. After learning about Manager Nichols' involvement with Faith in Action in September of 2019, I reached out to the Michigan State University Extension Office, and after describing the circumstances was told, quote, "Something doesn't smell right." I then contacted Manager Nichols via email, writing, quote, "Regarding the proposed partnership between Avalon Housing and Faith in Action, and your roles as city manager and Faith in Action board member, I'm wondering whether you consider your participation in this discussion and deal, for example, your signatures on legal documents, preparation of meeting packets, and participation in council meetings and public hearings to be a conflict of interest. Perhaps there was already a public discussion about or disclosure of this relationship and a justification for your continued involvement that I have not yet been able to find," end quote. On that same day, Manager Nichols replied, quote, "We all serve on the Faith in Action board as volunteers, so we have no financial interest in whether the Avalon project occurs or doesn't occur. Council is aware of my service on the board and it is not viewed as a conflict of interest. Quite the opposite, actually. My service allows the council and the community a direct connection to a vital nonprofit that serves our city," end quote. In that same email, Manager Nichols indicated she would become the president of the Faith in Action Board of Trustees the following month. A few months later, in January 2020, Mayor Keough expressed a similar sentiment in an email to me, writing, quote, "Your criticism of Courtney Nichols is also very unfair. You continue to suggest that there's a conflict of interest, and that is completely false and misleading. As you learn more about our community, you will find that a great many people participate in many circles, and sometimes those circles overlap at times. Courtney Nichols' interest in volunteering to serve on the Faith in Action board is genuine and was known by all involved. She has supported them for years and is putting her energy to a good use to help the greater Dexter community in yet another way. City Council was very aware that she was volunteering on that board. Her role on that board had nothing to do with Council's discussions with Avalon and Faith in Action, and her ultimate decision to support the Faith in Action Avalon partnership, end quote. Taken together, the responses I received from Manager Nichols and Mayor Keel imply that 1, conflicts of interest only involve explicit financial interest. 2, conflicts of interest do not exist when someone is being genuine. 3, conflicts of interest are unavoidable in small towns. And 4, conflicts of interest do not exist when council is made aware of them. Regarding the first implication that conflicts of interest only involve explicit financial interest, the ordinance under consideration that was supposed to be under consideration last week and will be in the future is obviously and rightly much broader than that, and includes, quote, a matter involving a corporation, company, partnership, or any other entity in which he or she is a part owner, or any other relationship with a corporation, company, or partnership, end quote. Regarding the second implication that conflicts of interest do not exist when someone is being genuine, notably the proposed ordinance makes no mention of the moral nature of one's motive. Regarding the third implication that conflicts of interest are unavoidable in small towns, the proposed ordinance provides no such exception, as is further echoed in an article by Michigan State University Extension specialist, quote, often a small community struggles to avoid a conflict of interest situation, but there are not any exceptions or special dispensation due to the size of a community. Regarding the final implication that conflicts of interest do not exist when council is made aware of them, the proposed ordinance rightly indicates that disclosure is the first step for dealing with conflicts of interest, not the last step. In fact, following proper disclosure, the proposed ordinance provides detailed guidance regarding the future involvement of the city official, noting that among other things, the official shall, quote, cease to participate in any meetings before which the matter is considered, and, quote, leave the meeting room until that agenda item is concluded. In this particular case, Manager Nichols not only continued to stay in the room, but she continued to advise council regarding the land sale and participate in public discussions, among other things. Notably, in September 2019, Manager Nichols wrote on behalf of the city to Chad Benson, the allocations manager for the MSHDA low-income housing tax credits, writing, quote, I am pleased to write this letter on behalf of the city of Dexter in support of Avalon Housing's Hilltop View Apartments affordable housing development that is applying for an allocation of LAHTC from MSHDA. A few months later, in December 2019, the city had an option to terminate the purchase agreement with Avalon because Avalon had failed to meet the requirements of that agreement. At that time, Manager Nichols sent a memo to council stating, quote, if council does not approve the extension of the inspection period, the agreement would terminate because the conditions have not been satisfied. And either a formal amendment to the purchase agreement would need to be made or a new agreement would need to be negotiated. Staff is recommending that council approve the inspection period extension request to June 30th, 2020, end quote. More recently, in a memo to council dated July 23rd, 2020, Manager Nichols asked council to consider a modification to the option agreement included in the closing documents, prohibiting the city from being able to buy the property back from Avalon. On June 5th, 2020, the city closed on the land sale with Avalon for a final sale price of $187,500, more than $90,000 below the appraised value of $278,000, a 33% discount. I'm here tonight to ask you to reflect on the circumstances of this particular transaction as you discuss the conflict of interest ordinance. I'm also asking for a response to the following question. What, if anything, about the sale of public land to Avalon would have changed had the proposed ordinance been in effect at the outset? Would you still maintain that Manager Nichols' involvement was not a conflict of interest, either real or perceived? If so, what language in the proposed ordinance supports such a position? And what guarantee do we have that a city official will not help the city sell public property for less than it is worth to an individual or organization with which that official is affiliated? Finally, I am requesting that you submit the full particulars of this transaction to the Michigan Attorney General Public Integrity Unit for their independent review to ascertain whether in fact there was a conflict of interest and whether any laws were violated as a result. Please submit my statement making this request to the Michigan Attorney General Public Integrity Unit and make a copy of the entire submission available for public inspection immediately. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. Jamie, just so you know, the reason I haven't responded is because you find a way to twist things that are said, and you read into things much deeper than most people do. And your suggested implications are somewhat insulting to me. I appreciate that you have an opinion on the topic, but we're also entitled to ours. And all you're doing in this case is kicking dirt around on good people. When I talked about, as you get to know the community, a great many people do more than one thing. And it was very well known to this council that our city manager was involved in Faith in Action, and nobody had a problem with what she was doing or the role she was playing in either case. So I know that you are trying.
I appreciate that, but that doesn't mean there's not a conflict of interest.
Jamie, excuse me, you had your 5 minutes or 6, whatever it was. I'm just
Thank you.
responding to you a little bit and letting you know why I haven't responded. I did receive your email, and I apologize for not letting you know I received it. That's why I didn't respond, though. Stephanie, you have your hand up. Stephanie Henyard has a hand up, please. Next.
Thank you. This is Stephanie Henyard. I am with 3577 Shaw Court, and I've got my camera on here. I just wanted to say that for the 7 years that my husband and I have lived in Dexter, we've loved that this is a wonderful, welcoming community. And we have always been impressed by the professionalism of council and city staff, and that I have no qualms about any of the actions, that council or staff taken. And I just wanted to voice my full support. I also want to put a note. I know that this is a bit of an unusual meeting because of the recent changes with the executive orders, well, the governor's orders. But I would love to request that at the point that in-person meetings resume, that there be some kind of Zoom option, because this has been a wonderful way for my husband and I to become more involved with civics. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Sean, this is Paul. Could Stephanie give her address again, please? I missed that.
Oh, sure. Stephanie, would you jump back in and give your address, please? Justin, if you could help with that.
Sure. 3577 Shaw Court.
Thank you.
Okay, we have one more, Cole Miller. Justin, if you could unmute Cole, please. Welcome, Cole.
Hi, evening, everybody.
Hi, Cole.
Thanks. I'm just gonna have some notes in front of me. First, I want to say thank you to Courtney for her work benefiting Dexter over these many years. I've been recently going back into old council meeting minutes for other nefarious purposes, and seeing her name all over is speaks to kind of how long and how invested she's been in this community, and does speak to the quality of staff that we have, that they stick around like this. And also that the people on the record is accepting bad legal advice, quote unquote, and foisting a headache of a ballot proposal on the residents and government of Dexter should think more deeply about their actions before they impugn the judgment of people working for the benefit of Dexter. On a separate note, what I come here today to speak about, oh yes, Cole Miller, 7654 Forest Street, coming in remotely from Dexter.
Thank you.
Lot 10 of the Dexter Estate Grant Edition. So before you consider the Planning Commission recommendations concerning short-term rentals, I would like to call your attention to several details I feel are worthy of the council's added attention. The intention is good and the difficult work of staff should be commended, but there are issues raised at the Planning Commission meetings concerning parking and site requirements that may prove prohibitive to residents looking for an easy way to rent a spare room. Additionally, the requirements for an agent living within 100 miles on the vacation rentals could be stricter without running against advice from received by staff. My main concern, however, is the impact on housing and rental prices potentially. Harvard Business Review has an article from April 2019 with a simple and straightforward headline: "When Airbnb listings in a city increase, so do rent prices." The hazard comes from taking properties off the market to use as short-term rentals, thereby limiting the housing supply without adding any additional homeowners. We would like to make it possible and convenient for older residents to continue live in homes they've created and rent out spare rooms but we don't want negative consequences. What we would like to avoid is a situation that does damage to the community. What we should prevent is providing a way to game the system and take advantage of the city to run an unlicensed hotel. If we want to enable people to make an entire house a short-term rental, that is a hotel in all but name. And here I'm speaking about the vacation rental portion of, not that that's what this proposal states at the moment. There is a residency requirement, but this is the larger concern that I hope that council addresses. If you are on vacation and your house is vacant, it would also be a benefit to be able to rent out the whole house when you're not there. And I'm not saying that the answer here is easy. And of course, the policy must in its final form be enforceable. But I would believe acting cautiously to begin with on the vacation rentals portion of the three, the vacation rental portion specifically, acting cautiously there is the right path. I believe we can come up with additional safeguards to maximize residents' benefits realized by this, but allowing short-term rentals on the whole, while thinking about the long-term aspects and protecting our community against the risks. Thank you.
Thank you, Cole. Justin, are you seeing any other hands up at this time? I'm not seeing any.
I'm not.
Okay, thank you for helping confirm. Okay, we will move down to communications. There are two communications in the packet now, officially, I guess, the upcoming meeting list, and then the report from Member Michelle's.
It's a communication report. So I will speak to that since we're in the communication sections now. So as you all know, I've been visiting fire stations, usually on the way back from work, but not exclusively. This most recent period, I've visited 3 additional ones. Heartland Township Area Fire Department, that's just east of M23, north of M59. It's similar to the Dexter Area Fire Department in that it covers a large area, some of it with watered, meaning hydrants, and some of it without. They have a number of stations. I was very fortunate when I was there that the fellow who's in charge of training got to speak with me. The original station is from 1976. They did a significant addition in 2001 with the millage that folks passed to do that. They increased the living quarters, the bays. This fellow, obviously, since he was in training, was very into describing the training they do there. Out back of the building, they had an area where they have mock roofs that they can change the angles on, so folks can practice working on those, standing on them, knocking into them with axes and whatnot. They also have areas inside from an old hose tower that they no longer needed because they switched to hoses that didn't need that type of drying anymore, that they can practice going up and down, that they can practice putting ladders up, then they can practice stuff with rope rescues. So that was kind of neat. One of the things he mentioned to me that I don't think is that in the sleeping quarters, instead of having a really loud alarm to wake people up, that it's actually, and it's counterintuitive, having something that wakes up more gradually. So the lights come up and the sound gets louder and louder. Maybe a little bit longer for you to be conscious, but you've been awakened in a more gentle process, so you're able to be effective more quickly instead of just being awake more quickly. A neat thing here is that they had a small exercise room. It wasn't originally designed for an exercise room. It's just a room that they repurposed for that, that all the firefighters get to use, and the 24/7 folks are required to do a certain number of hours of exercise in the week. He said that in times of the day, usually the morning, the wives will actually come in and they're able to use it. So it's been a great bonding experience beyond just the folks who are in the station, is that their families get to bond and know each other and care for each other. They also had a really large training room that was separate from the main part of the station, that they're able to hold trainings every week. He said that was also important for the bonding, that folks get to see each other, in addition to all the benefits of being able to train better and know what they're doing when they arrive on the scene. And because it's off on the side, it's also frequently used by community groups. Brighton Area Fire Authority. The building, Station 31, is right on Grand River. If you come off of 96 and go south, it's right there before you get downtown on the western side of the road. The bays are pretty impressive here. They have really large doors that fit the machines in it, double space so they can double load it. The original building is a bit old. It was before they had 24/7 staff, so they had on-call people, and then they had people there for a certain number of hours on the day. So next to our station, this one had the biggest challenge for the overnight quarters. They were basically using Murphy beds in separate rooms, so at least they are separated from there. A neat thing that they did have there also was a landing area in the apron for air flight helicopters. So they have jurisdiction over I-96, and when they have big accidents, they can bring folks there and have them lifted up. One thing that I saw with their fire trucks, actually this was at Heartland Township, is they had an extended front bumper on several of the engines. And on that extended bumper, they're able to put equipment for extrication. So the jaws of life, either hydraulic or electric tools. And the neat thing about that, as it was described to me, is when they come to an accident, they can park the engine behind the vehicle. So if there's still traffic on the road, that vehicle is protected and the firefighters are protected, and they have the equipment right there at the front of the engine to take. So they're not trying to monkey it around or worry about traffic or any of that stuff. It's right there. Because of the shortness of our station at present, we don't have an option to put that type of thing on the front of our trucks. So that's an important reason how the station can affect how they do their work out in the field. The Brandon Fire Township, they have 3 stations. I went to the main one, which is originally a car dealership. It had been added onto through the years, which made for really weird movements and really weird storage places. So for example, they do medical calls, but they didn't have a space near where their medical vehicle was stored to have all the storage. So they had a small storage area next to that and a larger storage area on the far side of the building. So they had to schlep stuff and make sure really ready for the use. And they, as I mentioned, they had lots of storage spaces added here and there and here and there that did make it difficult to know where things were. A nice thing that they had there was a program where they loaned the mobility devices out to community members. It did take up a whole bunch of space, but they had an entire room stored with walkers and crutches and wheelchairs that anyone in the community, if they need to use it, they come in, they use it for however long they need it, and then they bring it back. He also mentioned, the fellow I spoke to had been there for a couple decades, that it's getting more and more of a challenge to have on-call firefighters. And because of the limits for their building, it's not really pleasant to hang out at the building to grill at night or for trainings or that type of stuff. So it's putting a strain on their staffing that they're not able to get folks to help. And the on-call folks who are there are sometimes having to do multiple calls in a night. And that is what I have. I've got a couple more stations that I'm going to be visiting here in the near future. And today at noon, I participated in a remote Zoom session with Fiero. They're the nonprofit entity, nationwide entity that is involved in fire safety and station design. And I know council didn't ask me to report on that or attend that webinar, but I did, and I just communicated to you that I did. And that is my communications.
Thank you, Mr. Michels. Mr. Smith, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, just on our calendar, wanted to point out that the Dexter Area Fire Board will be meeting this Thursday at 6 o'clock and via Zoom.
Thanks, Jim.
And then the ACH virtual storytelling event was canceled or postponed to a future date to be determined. And then our city council meeting on the 26th should be 6 o'clock.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for all those. Seeing no other hands up under communications, we'll go to our first report tonight from our Public Services Superintendent. Welcome, Dan.
Good evening, everybody. I provided
Dan.
you I provided you with a 2-week report, and also I have some updates on things that are happening, preventative maintenance. The first update I'd like to start with is fire hydrants. I think we've got maybe half of this week. We're going to be in Westridge and Cedars, and hopefully we'll be done with winterizing all the fire hydrants for this year. Any questions on the fire hydrants?
Nope.
Last Thursday, I had a phone call about 5 o'clock from our on-call person. We had a water break at Grand and Baker on Grand Street. Went down there about 5 o'clock. After a couple hours, we shut a couple valves, or kind of closed a couple valves to identify what we had to do. Made some phone calls, and it wasn't leaking bad enough that we chose to take care of it that evening. If we would have called Miss Dig, and by the time they got there, it had been 1 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning. Anyway, we fixed it the next day. It was an old 2-inch galvanized line that I was not aware of that was even there. So we went to where it was leaking, dug up, and then we hooked our locator on it, traced it back about 20 feet to the nearest water main, shut the corporation off to that, abandoned that line. It wasn't hooked to anybody. I'm not sure if it was an old line at one time that went to Pilot Plastics that was there before Grandview was put in. But anyway, Friday the 15th, we got that shut off and cut and capped. Any questions on that?
I'm not seeing any yet. I'm flipping to pictures. Nope, keep going, Dan.
Last week, we also started our sewer cleaning of sewer mains. We started the Dexter Chelsea Road, the old part of town, on Tuesday. Wednesday, we did Island Lake Road. We went underneath the viaduct. We have one more day left of the preventative maintenance on the sewer mains. We'll be in Westridge this week, Wednesday, to finish up preventative maintenance on sewer mains. Any questions on that?
No.
That's all the updates I have. Do you have any questions on my 2-week report?
Is the leaf machine ready to go?
It's been going. We fired that up. I'm sorry that we started October 13th on that. They've been doing a really good job. The leaves are actually cooperating and coming down pretty good. So they started last week. I know they were on it today again. So hopefully in the near future, we'll be able to get them all collected. Like I said, with this rain and the frost we've been having, they're coming down pretty quick.
Very good. Dan, I don't see any hands up or anybody have any questions for Dan? Okay.
Thank you.
Very good. Thanks, Dan. We'll talk to you again next week. Next up is our Community Development Manager, Michelle.
Good evening, Council. How are you this evening?
I'm Michelle.
Good.
Wow, that was pretty weak, guys. Hopefully this will make you laugh or at least smile. Okay, you've got my report in front of you. Before I go into the updates, do you have any questions for me? Okie dokie. So, MedHub, 3515 Broad Street. Excuse me. You may recall that in 2015, Ascent Learning acquired MedHub. They continue to operate out of their Broad Street location, but earlier this year, MedHub moved to the Ascent Learning's Minneapolis office. So that Broad Street property is vacant, but it is being marketed by Swisher Commercial for sale or for lease. Excuse me. Earlier, I think just a couple of meetings ago, I had let you know about Erratic Ales and their temporary special use permit that they had submitted, one to expand their outdoor seating area and 2 for a food truck. I just wanted to make sure you all knew those were approved and they are working out very nicely. they do a really good job of marketing themselves. I see their stuff come through on social media, and it's very impressive. Whitetail Farm is currently, they have 2 locations in our downtown. One is on Broad Street at 3238 Broad Street in suite number 102. And then they also have another location at 8080 Grand in unit number 2. The owner, Mary Body, is condensing or what's that word I'm looking for? Consolidating her operations to all be at the Grand Street location, and that left the Broad Street space open, and Rogue Studio 22 is being relocated from Ann Arbor to take that space over. Excuse me. I know you've probably been waiting to find out about the red brick buildings. And for anybody that doesn't know already, they were purchased recently by Main Street Equities LLC, Mr. Brower. And that he has actually closed on that sale and taken those properties over. He started cleaning out the buildings. You may have noticed that there's a dumpster behind the red brick building or the former red brick buildings. Excuse me. He will be submitting the appropriate or the required plans for the interior remodeling. He needs a new roof for the building, and that will be coming shortly. The main floor of both buildings, he's marketing them for retail, commercial, and of course upstairs will be residential. I have not heard officially of the businesses, or I don't have confirmation on the businesses going in. I have heard through social media that one office could be the new Howard Hanna Realty office, and the other would be the Dexter Embroidery that's over on Baker Road. So we'll see if that actually comes to fruition, but it sounds like it's pretty firm. You'll also recall the 3268 Central Street building that Mr. Brower owns across the street from the Honey House. He has submitted an application for the demolition of that property. He is not proposing any new redevelopment or new building at this time, just the demolition. That's about it for right now. If you've got any other questions for me, I'm happy to take them.
Michelle, is there any update on the Millennium Place and the discussions that they're having with our fire department related to the front?
So I made I updated Planning Commission at their October meeting. They had a number of questions, what codes that were being cited for the requirements that are stalling this project at this particular time. And I have not yet followed through with the fire department, because in addition to the Planning Commission asking for a written codes as to what's being required, there was a recommendation from one of the planning commissioners that the applicant ask for the written document first. And I just have not had the opportunity to connect with Mr. Campbell. If he requests it, then he would give me a copy of it, I would presume, and I could share that with Planning Commission. If he does not intend to ask that of the chief and fire department, then I will ask the chief for it so that I've got it for the Planning Commission at their next meeting.
Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Michelle at this time?
Paul here. I know that some of us know what these places are, but it would be nice if this report intends to go also to the public, which it does, that you identify the space by an address. Dollar Tree, it says staff issue permit. Next step is a building permit. if I was just looking at this for the first time, I'd not know what you were talking about.
Okay.
The Zoya, the same with the Zoya group, the Millennium Place. Any of these, I think, would be nice if they would just identify what the address is, so people could say, okay, I know what that is, okay? And I thank you for identifying Mr. Brower's space there with an address this time.
Oh,
That
you're
he's
welcome,
tearing- that
Paul.
he's tearing down. The one he's tearing down.
Oh,
Can
the
you give us
one he's tearing
address?
down, yes, yes. I can put addresses on the ones in the future.
I know you deal with them all the time, but if this is a public place or some of us
Right.
that may be getting old, can't remember, then please identify them. Thank
Okay, just for clarification, Paul, Zayo Group doesn't have an address. That's the one.
I know what that one is, but somebody else may not, but that's the one that you could just identify that, what they're doing with as far as the
Oh, the right of way permit?
communication, the communication, what they're doing there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Other questions for Michelle?
Oh,
Okay.
if I can make one other thing, Sean.
Yes,
everyone,
yes, floor is still yours.
We are going into the update of the zoning ordinance. I've identified what the schedule will look like. We will be having an educational workshop and a joint meeting coming up, at least the joint meeting before the end of the year. Excuse me, I will get that out to you as far as trying to coordinate a date that could work for all of the boards and commissions, including council. And I hopefully it will be easier since we're going to be doing these by Zoom or virtually. But I also would ask for flexibility where you can provide it.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Yep, thanks for mentioning that. Appreciate it. Okay, I think that brings us down to I3. We have our Cap Dart meeting minutes that were included in the packet. Mr. Michelle is not sure if you want anything you want to highlight as our rep.
No, we had a meeting. There have been discussions. One of the communities has been concerned that they think we're a public body and need to do all the Open Meetings Act requirements, the full kit and caboodle. We don't believe we are a public body under the definition because we have no policy making decision. We just kind of get together, share information, and try to promulgate stuff. But we are working on kind of formalizing up as much as we can in a way that doesn't stop us from doing what we're doing. We actually have another pack of minutes to include in there. We've formalized meeting dates, and coming up pretty soon, we're going to have some folks from SEMCOG talk to us about how different techniques for sharing information with the public and different techniques for getting information from the public. So that will be interesting to see. And actually the fact that we're able to do these meetings on Zoom now has enabled us to reach out to folks that we might not have been able in the past to come to a meeting and speak with us because it's a long drive for them. So that a benefit of COVID, I guess.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions for Zach on that report? Okay, I think we're down to our city manager report. Courtney, are you ready?
Yep. So we did get our healthcare renewal, and it's like 4.4%. So that will not impact the employees' premium share. I think we had budgeted 6 or 8%. So it should also not impact the budget, which is a good thing that we're seeing that be a little bit more reasonable. We are going to purchase a trailer to store the election equipment. It's just going to be a better situation, allow it to be moved more easily. So we will do a budget amendment for that with the next round of budget amendments, because it's just $3,500. And I think that it makes sense to do that, Kurt's suggestion, and it'll help us not have so many bags of ballots, because we have to keep all of these ballots we keep talking about for 2 years in bags. So this will give us a place to put them that will keep them safe and out of the way. You may have heard that the Court of Appeals, I think it was, I lose track of all these courts, decided that now we don't have to accept the postmark on ballots. So we haven't been advertising that, thinking that it might get overturned, which it did. So right now the ballot has to be physically present in our office by 8 p.m. on election night to be counted. So that's the same rule that's always been. I don't know that that will change at this point. Hopefully it just stays the same. We did receive, so I had updated council on the issue on Grand Street, where we had to reconnect the sewer line that was coming from the schools that we were unaware of because it was in the part of the pipe that was collapsed. We did get invoices from the schools for the work that they did trying to figure out what the problem was. So those will likely be on a future agenda since it does exceed $5,000. We're working on closing with DTE on the property swap. That's been, what, 5-7 years in the making. We're pretty close at this point. One of the things we are going to do is have the property put into the name of the DDA because they own the Tupper property, the 3045 Broad proper, the piece around the substation. Makes sense so that we can turn that all into, potentially turn that all into one parcel, or just so that the DDA has ownership of both. So they will likely become the owner of that. And then the city will be selling the Dan Hoy piece. Council will be asked at the next meeting just to pass a quick resolution clarifying who can sign on behalf of the city for that purchase and assigning the purchase agreement to the DDA. The DDA has budgeted to repay the city for the cost of the land over the next 5 years. They make their first payment this year, and that would be for the cost of the Dan Hoy land that the city is putting into this swap. Justin has been appearing regularly on the Lucianne Land Show, so he is our newest local celebrity. Lucianne has asked us to participate more often, so he's been handling that. The Huron River Watershed Council calendars are being mailed this week. We got our allotment that we have at the office today, so they're very nice. They go to every resident. That's part of our MS4 stormwater permit. We have education requirements, and this is a big piece of how we meet that is by partnering with the Watershed Council to mail a calendar to everybody.
My mother loves them.
I'm sorry?
So my mom loves hers.
Yeah, no, they're so pretty.
Big enough to write on.
Yep. They will give some to the library in the usual locations. The library is back open as of the 12th. I don't know if you guys saw that. So we have issued 2,090 absentee ballots, which is about 60% of the voting population. We have 1,336 that have been returned. So we are working diligently on that. Takes up quite a bit of the day, honestly, processing them as they come back, and then of course giving out new ones. We're gonna hopefully do some additional crack seal. That will be a bit weather dependent because there are weather parameters that have to be met, and we're very stringent about those. But we're hoping, because we did so much work for such a small amount of money, to add a few more streets. We had the GI meeting for 3rd Street, which seemed to go well. It's always kind of like OHM turning in their homework to the state and then hearing the state's comments. So it's usually a pretty interesting conversation, but they did not have anything significant or significant concerns. We're still working on relocation of the garden. Oh, and we did get a sort of a demand letter today because from Huron Commons, apparently Waste Management, they claim Waste Management spilled some hydraulic fluid in their parking lot, and now they need the entire thing to be redone at a cost of $140,000. So I have forwarded that to our insurance company and to Waste Management. Sort of an unusual thing to get. That came from the Huron Commons Association's lawyer today. I think that's it, unless anybody has any questions.
Courtney, I joined that contract partners meeting from the sheriff's office a little late on
Yeah.
Thursday. Can you just touch on that, please, since you attended the whole thing?
Yeah, sorry, I forgot about that.
It's okay.
So Sheriff Clayton gave us an update that they're going back from 12-hour shifts to 8-hour shifts. The 12-hour shifts was something they did because of the emergency orders. It was allowed in their union contract, and they thought that it gave them a better way to distribute their force. And now that the executive orders are no longer in play, it becomes an issue to keep doing that because the union contract calls for 8-hour shifts. So they are going back to 8-hour shifts. We will have our acting lieutenant will be Al Hunt. So you'll see reports and things from him now. He'll be our main contact person. He has just come back. He was off on an injury. The sheriff did tell us that he's not going to seek another term. So in 4 years, it sounds like we will likely have a new sheriff. But other than that, I mean, they seem to be okay. I mean, they didn't really raise too many concerns. I know they've had some unexpected, a lieutenant got called up to military service for a year. So they've had some shuffling. But it sounds like things are well in hand. And he was going to try to get a contract, another like 2 or 3 year contract extension so that we'll have our cost. He's been really good about that.
Yeah, he if I can add to that, he indicated, I think, that they had upcoming negotiations with both the Police Officers Association as well as the Command Officers Association.
Yep.
That were coming forward here in the near future. And he expected that the topics in both cases primary topic in both cases were going to be salary. And so he said he was looking to work through that with them. But, that my read of that is that ultimate negotiation could have some impact on what the next 3-year cost, is for our good service that they provide. They've done quite an incredible job over the last several years of keeping those increases low or very, very minimally low.
Yeah, 1 and 1.5. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he
very,
did talk about the millage that, without the millage, that wouldn't have been possible. And that they're trying to they're going back actually to sponsoring people in the academy, which was done years and years ago and then kind of got phased out and now is back. My brother's department is also doing that, where they're actually, paying people salary through the academy just because they're trying to get new recruits and it's very difficult. So they have they'll have quite a number of new deputies coming online here after the academy graduates at the end of November.
Gotcha. So any questions for Courtney? All right. Well, you're letting her off easy. We're running out of opportunities to ask her questions.
2 more meetings.
So I wanted to let you know, and this is late, obviously, in saying it at the meeting because of the cancellation, but we did have Fire Prevention Week from October 4th through the 10th. I tried to recognize that with the proclamation of support and included it here so everybody could see it. I realize it's now late by 9 days and me mentioning it, but it is in the packet. I also have on the consent agenda a recommendation to fill the Open Planning Commission position that Scott Stewart created when he recently resigned. I'm recommending Chet Hill to fill that. So ask for your support there on the consent agenda to do that. I think I've said enough about other stuff there in the report, so I'll skip over. I want to say that we did not meet as a DDA. This past week, we were affected on the DDA meeting and the DAFD meetings by the lack of the ability to use the virtual meeting as an option. So as Courtney mentioned, we'll likely be having a special DDA meeting, or I think trying to get a special DDA meeting to conduct a little bit of business relative to that DTE agreement that we have for the property swap. And DAFD is going to, as Jim mentioned, is going to meet this Thursday evening at 6 p.m. Chief Smith has done another really good job of putting together a draft budget or spending plan, as he calls it, budget for us to review. So the first draft of that is out. I will work with Councilmember Smith to make sure that we share that with you so everybody can see that. Jim, if you could remind me to help pass that along, I'd like to forward that to all of council. But our contribution for the next year based upon the runs, which are, down again so far through this portion of the year, is minimally above where it was this year. And again, that's on a draft budget. So might even be a little less or a little more as we finalize that and the runs get finalized over the year. But financially, very well within what we can afford for the good service we're getting. I want to just say, since this is the first public meeting that since Courtney decided to leave us and take a job with another community, I'm going to really miss having her as our city manager. She has done and continues to do a very, very good job for all of us. The amount of time that I have watched her along with all of her staff, I can't name them all, so I'm just to say everybody, they are so dedicated to what they do and to helping this community move forward. Courtney took over, as many of you on the phone or on the line may or may not know, she took over as city manager in 2014. We were still a village then. She had 7 years of assistant city manager experience, and our council brought her forward and accepted that opportunity to make her city manager. Courtney, I just want to say thanks for all the good work. Thanks for the friendship. Thanks for just the solid advice day to day and being headstrong on what's right for the community. And you knew the rules, you played by the rules, and you were honest all the way, all the time. And I just want to say thanks. So I think that's deserving of my time to say that here as part of my report. And I may say a few other things about you as we go forward. Maybe I'll even bring some stories into play and we'll have a little roasting. We'll make my mayor's report the Courtney Nichols roasting ceremony on your way out here. But
Thanks, yeah, I think we have that covered.
yeah, thank you for everything you're doing. So does anybody have any questions for me? We're going to be putting a packet together here again in 2 days or so, or 3 days, whatever it takes to get out for the 26th. Any questions for me on anything?
I guess the question I have is, Paul, normally we have to have items that are going to be on the agenda by Monday, 4 o'clock, I believe, or 5. Is that going to be modified with this change in the agenda since we just finished,
No.
we'll finish this meeting in a few hours, or?
No, that would have been due today at 5, Paul. I mean, but if there's something, Paul, if there's something you want to put on the agenda, just email it in. We can discuss it. And, I'm not trying to keep anything off the agenda. That's never been the goal. So if you've got something you want to say, turn it in. But the hard thing about that requirement, and I think that this council or the next council needs to think about it a little bit, is when you wait until 5 p.m., okay, which is the deadline to turn something in. And with the request, by the way, oftentimes it's notified. It's not even turned in at that time, but sometimes it's turned in the next day. But when you wait until 5 p.m. to turn something in, and then the packet expectation is the packet's done on Wednesday and out, if there's any type of activity required by our city manager or our staff as a result of an agenda item that's requested to be on the agenda, it gives them very, very little time to actually do anything with it. If it's something, that becomes an action item or discussion item, if they want to make it part of the agenda. So, everybody knows the deadline's Monday, but if you're really thinking ahead and want something on the agenda, it's nice to be able, you can turn it in the week prior or days in advance. You don't have to wait till 5 p.m. is my whole message. Because I've observed several times where things come and they require some level of activity by our staff, and in an effort to make sure that they're, in fairness, given time to help the council member that wants something on the meeting. The earlier the better is, I guess, all my comment. So. But Paul, I was expecting that the deadline was today at 5, since this is just a special meeting and we would stick with our regular schedules. But call me if you want to talk about something. I'd like to move on to consent agenda.
I can read it this time, but I think we added, is it 5 that we added to set the public hearing for conflict of interest?
Yes.
Okay, I move we approve the 5 items listed on the consent agenda. Bills and payroll in the amount of $144,226.55. The appointment of Chet Hill to the Planning Commission, the quote from Raymer for preventative maintenance on well 2 at a cost not to exceed $11,000. To set a public hearing on November 9th for the renewal of the lease with Hotel Hickman for 8050 Main, and to set a public hearing for same date, November 9th,
November 23rd for the conflict.
November 23rd, for the purpose of taking public comment on the proposed conflict of interest ordinance.
Okay, motion by Ms. Fisher. Mr. Smith, I see you have your hand up.
Yes, I'll support.
Second by Mr. Smith. Ms. Jones, as you know, there's no discussion on the consent agenda items. Could you please call the roll to approve the consent agenda?
Yes. Fisher,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
Knight,
Yes.
Cousins,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Bell,
Yes.
Keel.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you for getting all 5 of those items passed. We are down to new business, item L3, which is consideration of the 2020-2021 ice rink.
So we discussed the ice rink at the last meeting, and the last couple of years of the ice rink have been challenging, and the Parks and Recreation Commission has asked for some guidance, and we've also we as staff are asking for some guidance. Number one, with everything that's going on with COVID and the pandemic, is the ice rink appropriate for this coming winter, given that we don't really work to control the crowds at the ice rink when it is open and available. And does the installation of the ice rink create a potential hazard or opportunity for uncontrolled crowds and the spread of the pandemic? The second is potential ice rink location. So in the past, up until last year, it has, at least before, a few years before that, been held in Monument Park. And last year it was moved to Mill Creek Park with the idea that there was a little bit flatter ground down there, and that maybe the ice would freeze a little bit better on that flat ground rather than the grade change in Monument Park. But it turns out last year was not a great year for the ice rink either, and we weren't able to open it at all. And I believe the year before we were only able to open it for about a week, the entire winter. So we wanted to get council's thoughts on those items and the ice rink in general.
Okay, Ms. Fisher, motion?
Yeah, I'm glad you opened with those comments, Justin. I have felt after I went through the last meeting that my positive vote for trick-or-treating hours, I made a mistake. As I have thought it over and I've watched what's going on and I've looked at the numbers that are coming up in every state, I feel like I should not have done that. So I'm going to suggest that we not do that at the ice rink. Other years will be fine and we can bring it back, and maybe we can bring it back with great fanfare, but I'm afraid to put it up, quite frankly. I don't want to do anything to contribute to somebody's ill health.
So Donna, is that a motion? Or
Yeah, that could be a motion. Yeah, I guess so. Sure.
Okay, so I'd just like to, before we get into too much conversation, okay, so is that a motion to not put it
that'll
up?
do. Mhm.
Okay, Jim, you have your hand up also?
Yeah, I'll support that.
Okay, so motion by Fisher, second by Fisher, not to put it up this year due to the COVID concerns?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you. Just want to make sure I had the motion down correctly. Okay, council discussion? Other thoughts? Scott Bell, I see your hand.
Thanks. Just real quickly, I agree with the motion. I'll support it. And, I think that it's generally the latest order from the Department of Health and Human Services is that outdoor gatherings of up to 100 people are allowed, provided face covering is worn, and we don't have any way to police or enforce that. And so, yeah, I think it's impractical to do it this year.
Okay, thank you, Scott. I don't see any other hands being waved on the screen or on the participant list. Okay, Ms. Jones, please call the vote.
Yes. Smith,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yep.
Fisher,
Yes.
Bell,
Yes.
Knight,
Yes.
Cousins,
Yes.
Keo.
Yes. Okay, motion carries. So we're gonna not do that this year for reasons as discussed. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Justin. Thank the Parks Commission for their work on that and thinking about that as well.
I will.
New business item L4 is consideration of a resolution to dedicate or to accept the dedication, I guess, of Dexter Ann Arbor Road from the Road Commission. Mr. Smith, I see you have a hand up.
Yes, I'll make the motion to approve the resolution on page 114 and 115 of our packet.
Okay. Scott, I see you have your hand up as well.
I'll support the motion.
Okay, so motion by Smith, second by Scott Bell for the resolution on page 114, 115. Jim, I see you have your hand up still. Discussion?
No.
Take it down. Okay. Okay.
Zach has his hand up.
Oh, Zach, thank you. I see it. Yep. Zach.
Yeah, we need
please.
to make some amendments to the resolution as it's shown on page 114 and 115. The introductory paragraph, we're no longer doing this by executive order. We need to reference the state acts that allow us to do it by Zoom. It also says it's on October 12th. We need to do it a special meeting on October 19th. And
Right.
also resolution declared adopted at the bottom. That should be updated to today's date as well.
Good comments. All good comments.
I accept those amendments.
Definitely.
Okay, Jim, Scott, thank you. Zach, thanks for bringing those forward. Courtney, anything to add?
No, once we take action on this, the road commission will take action, though they may have already since our meeting got delayed, but anyway, both actions will be mailed to the state and then will be added to our Act 51 map.
Gotcha. Dan, are you looking forward to plowing that?
I think they usually did.
Again? Okay.
So sorry, Dan was muted.
No, it's okay. I was just joking around. Okay, any council concerns about this action or other discussion? Okay, Ms. Jones, if you would please call the vote to accept the resolution as modified.
Yes. Knight,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
Bell,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Cousins,
Yes.
Keo.
Yes. Thank you. Motion carries. New business item L5 is our is related to the Planning Commission recommendation to approve the text amendments to the zoning ordinance regarding short-term rentals and bed and breakfasts.
Sure. So the planning.
Wait, let's see if, let me just,
sorry.
or Mike, let me see if we get a motion, please, first. Jim, I see your hands up.
Yeah, might as well. I'll make the motion on, that's at the bottom of page 121 in our packet.
Okay, which is to accept the Planning Commission recommendation.
Yeah.
There-
and I think
There's three motions.
And one,
Yeah, there's-
two, with a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Okay,
And it also has to correct the date of our meeting here to the 19th in that motion.
okay. Okay, so number 2, you said on page 122, right?
No.
I'm trying to hear what you said. Did you say it?
I said the first one.
Okay, all right. Just want to make sure. So item 1 on 122 then, right?
I gotta read that second one now again.
Second one allows for modifications. I think otherwise it's the same.
It's probably the second one, because we did the, it's actually both of them, actually.
The first one would be if you guys don't do any changes to it. The second one would be the one you'd use if you're going to do any modifications.
Okay, I'll go for number 1 then. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
item number 1 on page 122,
Yes.
which matches the proposed red line amendments that are in our packet.
Yes.
Okay, so motion by Smith, second by Fisher. Okay, now, sorry, Mike, I cut you off, Mr. Auerbach.
Oh, that's quite all right. Yes, the Planning Commission's recommended amendments to the zoning ordinance that would allow for 2 categories of short-term rentals to be permitted in the city and reclassify bed and breakfast inns from a special land use to a by right use. And I think some of well, as you may notice, it comes in the form of 2 recommendations. At the first hearing, when the commission considered recommending approval of these amendments, Commissioner Schmidt had introduced some written comments that were presented at the meeting but weren't identified at the motion. I identified in that motion to recommend approval. So the commission at their next meeting made a subsequent recommendation to include Commissioner Schmidt's comments. And so the version of the amendments in your packet include Commissioner Schmidt's comments as well in a single draft. The Planning Commission had been discussing these changes over the course of several meetings over the last year. And I'll be happy to answer any questions if anyone has any.
Okay. Questions by council members? Doesn't look like Zach's hand's up. Paul, you're good, looks like, at least right now.
I'm sorry.
Oh, Zach, okay. Go ahead, Zach.
Folks, go to page 232 of the packet. Number 15, essential public service storage yards. That appears there's a renumbering reference error that happened where 15, the first thing says you need to meet the requirements of item 15 above, and self-reference usually isn't good, so it's probably supposed to be 14 above. So I wanted to allow discussion for this, but then I wanted to postpone to next meeting so that staff can check and make sure that all of the references in this and references in other sections of the ordinance to these are accurate.
Was that a motion, Zach?
I wanted to have discussion first so people could get their feel of it, but I wanted to bring that up, that there is that reference there. And when you deal with this many section of the zoning ordinance, it can be tricky. So after discussion, I was going to vote to postpone it to next meeting or the meeting after that.
Zach, would you be good enough just to tell me that again? I just got to page 232, sorry.
All right, yeah, there's a cheat. If you go to the top of your PDF, you can type the page number and it'll get you there right away.
Yeah,
So,
okay, sorry.
New item 15, which was currently item 16.
Yep.
Labeled essential public service storage yards. Item A of things you need to do is meet the requirements of item 15 above, but that is item 15, so that's obviously a reference ghost. It's supposed to be item 14 above, I would presume, because old item 15 is up above and renumbered as 14.
Okay.
So that would need to be corrected. And so I would, as described, after we have discussion, move for this to be postponed so that we can double check, make sure there are no more ghost references in this section or the non-touch sections of the zoning ordinance.
Okay. Anything else before I call on Mr. Bell, whose hands up? Okay, Mr. Bell?
Yeah, thank you. I know we touched on this briefly the last time this came up. I think it was our last regular meeting. But could staff remind me what's driving this? What need is this serving? What problem is it solving? What past error is it rectifying?
Sure. So about a year ago, staff brought it to the Planning Commission's attention that we'd observed some short-term rental activity in the city, relatively little compared to other communities. I think we identified about 6 over the course of 2018 to 2019. But the issue was that in our zoning ordinance, there's a definition for short-term rentals, but no other provisions about where and how they can be permitted. And so it was sort of difficult to administer in terms of trying to explain to people that effectively the activity wasn't permitted unless they wanted to apply for a bed and breakfast special land use approval, which was the closest similar use that we have in the ordinance. And so we put the question to the Planning Commission if they wanted to explore adding more specifics about short-term rentals, just to add clarity in the ordinance, which they were interested in doing. So.
Okay. And so where did vacation rentals come from? Because that seems like it's separate from what you're describing, and it's related, but I have some issues with that category, and I'm not sure that, I'm sorry, my question is, where did that come from? Why does it appear in here now?
So in starting the discussion about how to draft these amendments, the commission reviewed generally the different characteristics of short-term rentals, and that just to begin to understand how they can vary in terms of their operations. And one of the key distinctions is that whether or not it's a short-term rental that someone is operating out of their residence where they live but may rent it out from time to time, versus what we call a vacation rental, which is dedicated exclusively for use as a short-term rental. And that was a distinction that the commission raised the most concerns about. I think most of the discussion had to do with potential nuisance issues that could come with a dwelling that's exclusively used as a short-term rental. So they wanted to, they thought the special land use category would be more appropriate for that kind of use. So
let me just make a comment then. I have a problem with this category because of the lack of residency requirement. In my observation in the community of long-term residential rentals, single-family dwellings that are rented on a long-term basis by an absentee owner, non-resident owner, that there's a much lower level of interest on the part of the owner in maintaining the property, at least aesthetically. And that is a fact that I have observed occur. And my fear is that we're allowing more of that to occur with these short-term rental with non-resident requirements. So if this category wasn't included, I'd probably support this ordinance tonight, but I'm not going to. Thank you.
Scott, if I could address your comment real quick. I completely agree. There is a pattern of behavior with absentee landlords. The difference with this particular ordinance in vacation rentals is the unlike regular long-term rentals, somebody renting an apartment on a longer-term basis, they don't have to come in for site plan review, much less special land use review. The vacation rentals, as this ordinance is written, they have to come through for special land use approval with a full site plan that goes to both Planning Commission and City Council. And then having that dedicated responsible agent, the Planning Commission is baked in the necessary, what's the word I'm looking for? Controls, if you will, to ensure that you wouldn't have that absentee landlord situation like you have with long-term rentals.
So they have to appear before Commission, Michelle, when they initiate the practice of renting the property. When they become a vacation rental property.
Correct.
One time, right?
In the beginning, correct. They have to go through that whole process.
So
it's
at the
not
very
an
beginning,
inexpensive process. So
no, but my point is at the outset of the process, there's a great deal of oversight. And once the special land use has been granted, what then?
So that's where, you know, how you're looking at the rental inspection ordinance, that 2 to 3 year rental inspection, these fall under that. So that's the other safety net, if you will, to ensure you don't have that absentee situation.
But the inspection has to do with the health and safety of occupants, not aesthetics, correct?
It's property maintenance as well.
I guess I'd have to go back and look at that. I'm still not sure I'm ready to support it.
I understand.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Good question, good comments. Other
Paul
council
here.
questions? Paul? Yes, sir.
Well, I think in full disclosure, I have a building on my property that has a rental space that has hit when we came here 20 some years ago. And I think that what's going to happen with people like myself or others is that it's just going to be too expensive to match what we need to do to continue this process. There's so many variables that happen in the rental area. For instance, my water is connected directly to the water of the rental. So when I pay the water bill for myself, I pay it for them as well. The electricity is the same way. Now that all came about before I, bought the property. So how do we determine that? Do I go back and calculate the difference of 1 month to another month of what they use, or do I throw a lump sum in? It's very difficult when you have this thing. And it seems to me like we are And when I looked at this, I couldn't believe how big it was for an issue that I don't think is that important. I shouldn't say important, that I don't know what the word I want to use there. And it's an issue in the city. Now, unless I've seen a lot, I don't think there's been a lot of violations that would be necessary to draw something up this big. Maybe the planning commission did. I would be interested to know the 6 people that, 6 places that they had, and if any of those were corrected when they were told that they didn't match the ordinance or the area for short-term rentals. Did they do anything, or did they still exist in that area and to continue to do that? Mike, you would have mentioned, I don't know if you can answer that question or not. But my wife and I do use, well, we did before the COVID issue, a lot of bed and breakfast, whether it was in Europe or whether it was here in the United States. And it seems to me like that when I go up north, there's not the issues at all that related. I've talked to people about it because I was, my wife and I, when we bought this property, we thought maybe we would use that as a bed and breakfast space. We had no people back in our home at that time. And, I think we discussed that was not going to be good because I don't think rental people want to see me walking around in my underwear. So we stopped that idea right away. Okay. So the thought is that I just think that it's an overreach here. Unless we really have a problem. And I don't know there was a problem. It's not like in Ann Arbor where we've had a big mass of these rental places where people have had really, really solid issues with. We haven't had that at Dexter.
You're right. You're right. There have not been as many as there are in Ann Arbor, but the 4 to 6 that we have had, Mike had to do enforcement on them, tell them that it had to stop, that they could not do it. Some stopped immediately, some didn't. Some it took a little bit of additional enforcement letters, but in the end, the people who wanted to do these came to the Planning Commission and asked if the Planning Commission would consider going through the process to amend the ordinance to allow it. And so that's what the Planning Commission did. And Mike's done an excellent job taking us all through the process of figuring out the different types of short-term rentals. And it's a comprehensive ordinance. It covers all bases. One of the things I will add for you, I understand you inherited a situation when you bought your property, and the fact that the unit is connected. There are a number of units throughout town currently that have that same type of situation. And sometimes that makes it difficult for a landlord. On the flip side, it also makes it difficult for a tenant sometimes. The bottom line is when you set up a rental situation and are a landlord, you're in essence, you're running a business. And when anybody asks me when I put my economic development hat on, what are some suggestions? What should I do? I always give them I always remind them, you're running a business. And so you have to think about it that way. And then I recommend that they get in touch with the Small Business Development Center so that they understand that it's not just an easy thing. And you've done this for a number of years now. It's not just an easy, okay, I'll get a renter and they'll pay me and everything will be great. There's a lot of work involved as the landlord, isn't it?
Well, I don't know how much more work. They live on our property. I have to mow the grass, whether it's their property, their grass or my grass. It's still the same grass.
But you have to make sure that you've got a responsible tenant, that they've taken care of the place, and that you're providing the services as a landlord that you need to provide.
Ms. Fisher has her hand up if.
Michelle, who does the inspecting? for these places? Except Washtenaw County?
No, I don't believe we've decided that it's Washtenaw County. Currently, Washtenaw County Building Department does not do rental inspections.
Okay.
I believe, if I remember correctly, the memo that you all have seen and have looked at is that it's either something that we take on more as staff, or it's a person that we hire on a as needed consulting basis. Michael,
Okay.
what's the term that we used, or Justin, what was the term that was in the rental inspection ordinance for who do the actual inspections?
I don't remember the term that you're referring to.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I
Wait,
don't think
what
it's
would-
been determined definitely yet, Donna.
Okay, well, that's fine. And don't hold up the meeting because of that. You can call me or I'll call you or something.
Okay.
Thank
But-
you.
But correct me if I'm wrong, that's a separate issue from this, right?
Correct. They are separate, but they do have a tie.
I mean, right, obviously. Okay. Zach, I don't want to, I didn't pass by you. You wanted to let the discussion ensue, I think.
Yep, I moved to postpone to, for staff, what would be a good time for you to check on all this?
On second.
First meeting in November?
We could do the first meeting in November. Mike,
Okay, first
would that
meeting.
work?
Sure, yep.
Okay, so we have a motion by Michelle's to postpone this item till November 9th would be the first meeting in November, to allow staff to go and check all of the section to section references, ghost references, I think you called it, such and such, that kind of thing. Is that correct, Zach?
Call it ghost references, yes.
Okay, and then this second by Ms. Fisher, did I hear that correctly?
Yes, you did.
Okay. Ms. Jones, did you get that motion down?
Yes.
Okay.
Does that
Thank you.
replace Mr. Smith's motion now?
Well, no, when we come back on the table on the 9th, his motion will be active.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Ms. Jones, please call the vote to postpone.
Yes. Cousins,
Yes.
Knight,
Yes.
Bell,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Keo.
Yes. Okay, item has been postponed. We're now down to new business item L7 on page 4, consideration of city office meeting room space.
You want me to provide an update or?
Yeah, that would be good, Courtney, if you would, please.
So the items on here were, as discussed at our last meeting. Subsequent to this, well, some of the pressure was taken off just because we know we can have virtual meetings till the end of the year for no reason. But Michelle today heard from the owner of the building where Three Bird is and the Edward Jones. That owner has a purchase agreement to purchase the downtown Encore building. And he wanted to throw his hat in the ring as a possible, at least temporary or permanent, I suppose, city office location, city office meeting space location. In this case, it would be a rental, similar to the situation that we're in now, but that is actually 6,800 square feet. So that is getting much closer to what we would actually need. He was thinking at least a 2-year lease at, I think it was approximately $12 a square foot, though that could be negotiable. That was just the first offer. So that is kind of another interesting, that kind of piques staff's curiosity, I think, more than I've seen some options that we've talked about, just because you know, it's not a long move, but it would be enough space to have both in one location. And even if we did work on a permanent solution, which, you know, would still be good. I mean, I know people feel strongly about us. Some people feel strongly about us owning a facility. That could, you know, still occur, but it would give us more space in the meantime. So that just came up today. He called, you know, unsolicited, having kind of read what was going on with this discussion. So just wanted to provide that information.
Courtney, this is Paul. What did you describe the space with the area again? I didn't get all that where this is.
This is the current Encore, the
But where-
downtown Encore.
Okay,
He
I
has a
got that.
purchase agreement with Dan Cooney. Yeah.
I got that. But what's the space that's larger than that?
The 6,800 square feet is
Yeah.
that space.
In
That's
Dan's space? The
It-
Encore
it's
space,
the-
excuse me.
Yes.
So
the
he's
current-
purchased it, he's purchasing it or is purchasing it, and he's the one that's making this offer that we could be there.
Right. Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
The
Now it's
person
clear. Okay,
purchasing
thank
it.
you.
Yeah.
Courtney, what was his name again?
Matt Schuster.
Okay,
Schuster.
okay.
And he did log into the meeting tonight.
Gotcha. Yeah, I don't see his name on here anymore, but unless he's the phone number down there that I don't recognize, but okay.
Yeah. So just an interesting other possibility. And I'm assuming David could, you know, I talked to David about this to get the quote on the, you know, sketching up some options, and I'm sure he could do the same. I think Michelle sent me today a schematic of the inside of the building, so, you know, we would have at least something to go on as far as what the inside looked like if we wanted to see what that might, you know, look like from David. I'm sure it wouldn't be too much more than what he quoted, you know, 4 or 5 hours. He has all that information.
I think it's intriguing.
Yeah, it's kind of where we were at with it.
Zach has his hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. I wasn't trying to ignore that yet. I was just thinking aloud. Go ahead, Zach.
I had experience working with this fellow when I was the Dexter Township Director of Planning and Zoning. It took an inordinate amount of time to work with him on various planning and zoning issues. I had to write civil infractions. I had to take him to court in order to get compliance. Personally, I would not want to deal with him from a rental. I like the building, that location much better, but I would not endorse it based on my previous experiences with the individual. That's my 2 cents there.
Yeah, it's interesting because we had heard from the current tenants that he was really good to work with, but, you know, that's more from a tenant perspective, not a enforcement perspective.
Mr. Smith, you have your hand up?
Yes, I was gonna ask Courtney, could you share that floor plan with us?
Yeah, I just got it like at, you know, 5 o'clock, so it wasn't,
When you have a chance.
well, it can go on the next packet, which we're doing in 2 days, so
Thank you.
you don't have to wait long.
Move to postpone to next meeting.
Okay, motion by Michelle's,
Support.
support by Mr. Smith. Thank you. Discussion? Scott, I saw your hand go up for a brief second. I assume that was to second.
Correct.
Okay.
Is
I'm
this
missing-
excuse me, is this the October 26th meeting, next meeting then?
Yes, please.
Yes.
Okay.
Am I missing a hand anywhere? Okay, Ms. Jones, please call the vote to postpone the item.
Knight,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Cousins,
Yes,
Bell,
Yes.
Michelle's,
Yes.
Keo.
Yes. Thank you. Motion carries. New business item L8 is the resignation letter from or submitted by Ms. Nichols. I see Mr. Smith has his hand up. I'll let Jim go.
Thank you, Sean. I'd like to offer a motion here. With sincere regret and best wishes for her future endeavor in municipal government, I make a motion to accept the resignation of Courtney Nichols, our village and city manager for the past 13 years. We appreciate your service as manager and all the ways you have contributed to our community.
Thank you, Jim. Ms. Fisher, your hand is also up.
And we're all better for it. I second.
Okay. Well said, both of you. Discussion by council.
Yeah, we ought to change it to reflect the fact that Ms. Nichols is going to a township, not a municipality.
Mr. Smith, you okay with that?
I mean, I'm not being specific about where she was going, municipal government in general. So.
Local unit of government.
Okay, well, let's not let the wordsmith thing get in the way of the sentiment. I didn't hear an acceptance of that, so we'll let the original motion stand, I guess.
Paul here.
Go ahead, Paul.
I noticed that we have a next item of discussion of city manager vacancy. Are we going to have an exit interview or have been able to have exit interviews with Courtney?
Paul, we haven't done any of that yet. My goal in adding the next item was to get all of us talking together and deciding how we wanted to handle things. Going
I'm
forward.
okay to discuss it the next one. I just wanted
Yeah,
what the thought were having it or not having it. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea.
I'm okay with it. We go to the next item and talk about it there. Thank you.
Okay. I'm not seeing other hands waving, am I, or missing anybody? Okay, Ms. Jones, please call the vote to accept Mr. Smith's motion, seconded by Ms. Fisher.
Okay, Bell,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
Knight,
Yes.
Cousins,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
Keo.
Regrettably, yes. Motion carries. Good luck at the next stage of your career, Courtney. So last item here tonight is a discussion item on how to fill the vacancy that will happen. Courtney's last day is the day of our November 9th meeting, I believe.
Yep.
And I didn't want to go too deep into this item without getting council's guidance or encouragement or blessing on the steps. So I asked Courtney to put the information from our charter basically in the packet. So we had that as reference material. In lieu of the fact that I was hoping to have this conversation a week ago on the 12th. I think all vacancies start with a job description. So I asked Courtney if we actually had a job description for city manager, either in her file or back in the files from when we switched from Donna to her. And that if we didn't, I asked her to prepare a draft of that so that council could look at that draft job description together. So I asked her to put that together and expect that we'll have that as part of a continuation of this item at our next meeting. So that's one step I did take. Paul and others, sort of to your question, I think the exit interview is an excellent thing to have happen at some point. I did reach out to our superintendent of public works, Dan, and just have a conversation with him about that, just about this, whatever, going forward, life without Courtney, so to speak. I plan to contact Marie and have the same conversation and Justin as well, sort of the three senior leaders in that role. I may touch base with some other staff as well, just to get their thoughts on this. I think staff's input on what Courtney's been really good at in her leadership role will help us as we look to define the position going forward. So, I'm anxious to hear what council's thoughts are. I think we should, be creating a job description and then posting the position for a set period of time, with the caveat that it's open until filled, but that, at some point after we post it, there's an initial date at which we review the applications that come in. A process like that would allow for both internal and external candidates to put their name in the hat, so to speak. Obviously we have really good staff that have been here for many years that are qualified as well. So if council wants to go a different direction and look internally first, I'm certainly okay with that. I'm having this conversation out in the open in front of them as well as you. Want to be very transparent about the fact that I think we have an excellent team. I've always promoted from within before, or tried to promote the opportunity to promote from within when you have the opportunity. But I'm not sure where the rest of you are in that discussion or thought process. So I'll stop talking. I see Scott Bell has his hand up. I'll let Scott go first.
Yeah, thanks. I just wanted to observe, I agree with everything you said, Sean. But it's likely that the process of selecting a person to fill Courtney's position is going to take some time and is likely to extend beyond her end date. In which case we should have plans for an interim manager. And so I'd like to suggest that maybe Courtney could give some thoughts about what sort of, we want to maintain continuity of function, right? So you do a lot of things, you're busy all the time. Those things can't go undone between the time you leave and the time we hire someone in that position. So we need someone in the interim. If you could think about some recommendation, whether you have recommendations and suggestions for that, I'd appreciate it. That's all.
Well said. And Scott, on that, my thought on getting to the interim was, that we can appoint somebody. We have a couple of meetings to do that yet. That's why that.
No, I understand. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
But my point was I'd like to have Courtney's input, and I didn't want to just put her on the spot and ask her flat out. I'd like her to think about it. She may already have, but when it comes time for us to discuss that, I, at least for one, will want to get her input and suggestions if she has it. If I'm around when we have that conversation.
Very good.
Zach's got his hand up.
Oh, go ahead, Zach. Sorry.
Yep. I think we ought to contact the Michigan Municipal League. They have service where they do executive searches. They can also, as part of that, review the job description and the salary. Make sure it's commensurate with the duties and with our neighbors. They also have the ability to contact folks in for interim. So that's kind of my big thing, is we ought to engage them in that, because that's what they do. I appreciate the sentiment for closed to internal candidates. Personally, I think it's best to have it as wide open as possible. Not to say we don't want an internal candidate, but as someone who has received internal promotions in the past, it gives you a bit more authority and heft and gravitas if you can say, I'm here because I'm the best, not because I was here before. So those are my thoughts.
Okay. So you're supporting the open process that I was suggesting.
Yep.
Okay.
And having MML help us with it.
Okay. Is everybody okay if I help reach out to MML?
Yes.
I am. Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. Okay. I'll help you get involved in that, or make sure everybody's aware of what I find out. I will try to have some stuff ready for the next packet so we can keep the process moving ahead.
Paul here, I agree with Scott that I think this process could take a little while, and so interim manager may be necessary. And there are those that have done that in our community and surrounding communities, and maybe we could reach out to them as well that have done this before. So that's a possibility, but I'm open to make it as open as possible, internally, externally, and with all the help we can get from MML.
Okay. Jim, Donna, Julie, everybody okay with the general direction that we're all talking about here?
I'm okay with it, yes.
You're just looking for information. You'll let us know what they say.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And you know, and I'd like to bring back a draft job description. I'll try to reach out to MML and see what they have to help in that role. You know, every community is different, so we might want to post it a little different than your standard off the shelf. That's why I want you and the rest of us to talk it over, you know. Anyway, we'll do it together, and I'll try to get us to the next step. Does anybody else have other comments or thoughts on this? We'll be back at it 1 week from now talking about it. Okay, thank you. And staff, I thank you for your patience as we figure it out. I will be reaching out to you for guidance and thoughts as well. So you're part of this as well. I'll drop down to council comments. I'd like to start with our 2 student reps this evening. I think Isabel joined us sometime after we approved the or did the roll call. So if I can call on her first, if she's still here.
Oh, sorry. I didn't realize I could unmute myself. Yeah, I joined a little bit after. Sorry, I was at soccer practice, but I don't really have any comments. This weekend or the weekend, the next on October 22nd, 23rd, and 24th at 6 p.m. and on the 25th at 2 p.m. they're holding a Dexter drama like production, and I think it's like Robin Hood-esque. So you'd view it online and you'd get a link and you could look at it. So that might be something fun you'd like to do.
Is that your symbol that's showing up when I see it on Zoom here?
Yeah, it's a Peter Pan symbol that I put in 7th grade and I never changed it.
Okay. I couldn't make out what that was. Okay, gotcha.
I'm sorry.
Gotcha. No apologies. Thanks for joining us. And Carol, maybe you could just let the record reflect that she did join us at some point after the start.
Right, I do have that. I noticed her in there. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks for paying attention to that. Alex, are you able to go next or on with us here? I think you are.
Yes, no comments tonight, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. You're welcome. Let's see, Miss Knight.
Yes, thank you. And you know, I'm a person of few words, but I do want to comment on Courtney leaving. She will be greatly missed, and she has done wonderful things for our city. So I will miss her greatly, and I think our whole community will. Okay.
Thank you. Completely agree.
Well said, Julie. Paul?
Well, I have reflected back to what we did in our agenda here of dropping off the council member reports. And I guess my question would be, where do those come in? Do we wait until the end, like right now, when many people in the community have dropped off the hearing of this participation? We know that when we have live meetings, people walk out and there's fewer people there. If that was the intent, you've succeeded in limiting free speech and the opportunity for us to participate in making a comment. I also would say that if that's true, then I would hope that the mayor would have reports that would just be reports, because that was what the intent was, is that we shouldn't have comments. They should be reports. And Mr. Michelle's did that by shifting his to another section of the agenda. So what is a report then? A report is what you have accomplished or what you intend to do. It's not an opinion. It's not a speech. I hope we reflect on what we've just done to our council and how that has modified our opportunity to share information or to criticize somebody that has made something in a report, an opinion. In fact, the last item that he says in his report this time, or one of the items, he says, in my opinion. Well, it's not a report, it's an opinion.
Okay, thank you. Donna Fisher?
Maybe you should change the name of your entry to Mayor's Letter, if that would solve some of the discrepancy and some of the fighting that we have going back and forth. I didn't miss anything that Zach had to say. He just moved it over from one spot to the other. And, you know, I think we should commend him for being diligent about what he does. And, but he wasn't appointed to do that. He volunteered to do it. I'd rather the community see him for his strength, which is he volunteers, he digs up information. I see no problem with this at all.
Zach?
Yep, let's see. I was poking around on some information for the Open Meetings Act to see if we could do a closed session for lease of property. And I ran into something that gave me a little goosebumps as a planner. I see Mr. Munzella is still there. So my first question is, when we set the notice for this public meeting, we have to do it for the special meeting. It has to be at least 18 hours before. Was the posting at city offices visible to the public for more than 18 hours?
Yeah.
Do we know that?
Yeah, Justin came in on Saturday and put it up. It's taped to the front door facing out. So yeah.
Okay, I wanted to,
yeah.
that just gave me chills because I know we usually post it inside and
yeah, we know we have to do it outside or facing outside when it's shorter notice. Plus it was in the email update and on our calendar and not our electronic requirements too.
All right, good. A couple of things I learned from the Fierro Fire Station Design webinar earlier today is that the rule of thumb is for every 5,000 square foot of programmed building space in a fire station, you should plan to have 1 acre of property to accommodate all the accessories and appurtenances to that fire station. So 1 acre for every 5,000 square feet of fire station. They also gave updated information for the increase the escalation costs that I didn't have previously because I went to this conference a couple years ago. So for those of you keeping track at home, and if you're Mr. Mayor and keeping track for the public, 2017, the cost escalation to build a fire station was 22% higher than the previous year. In 2018, the cost escalation was 20% over the previous year. And in 2019, it was 8%. They've reported for 2020, there are wild swings with the costs. They're tending to be much higher because contractors don't know the situation about being able to get staff or supplies. Mr. Clerk's still here. I'm curious. I know it's more of a perhaps an election commission thing, but have we had any discussions about security at polling locations and having the constabulary available or driving by in a slow roll from time to time?
Yeah, so we've already been in contact with the Washtenaw County Sheriff, as has the Washtenaw County election, the Washtenaw County Clerk. So the sheriff will be doing regular visits to all of the precincts in Washtenaw County on a regular basis on election day.
That's good. I know there are a couple townships nearby that requested that in the primary, but I didn't quite get it. Let's see. I do want to touch a little bit in this comment section, let me pull this up here. The mayor's report, that my comments that were originally in my report from this meeting, as I've read through it again, there's no reference to any activity the Dexter Area Fire Department did or to a trailer. It goes, this is a quote from there. It has been many meetings since City Council spent any real time discussing the underlying actual needs at our current fire station as it relates to the fire and rescue services that we are doing. In recent years, our conversations have focused on land purchases, large facility bond amounts, and whether we need a construction manager or not. We have also discussed the needs for a city hall space, which in my opinion is the most important current need. All those discussion topics are important, but today's reflection is focused on our fire station. I keep asking myself, are we as a council really addressing what we need to improve at our fire station as it relates to the services we are providing? I feel we need to focus on what we really need. I have been reflecting on our past discussions and sorting through the many conversations that we have had over the past 6 years. There certainly were a lot of conversations. What was it that set us out to have these discussions about our fire station? So I started my reflection with some basic thought. And here we get to the bullet points. There's been no reference to we need to have a trailer. We had this meeting that the DFD said they wanted to get it. So I started my reflection with some basic thoughts. At the basic root of all these discussions is the fact that our current fire station is an older building. This is true. However, our building is structurally very sound. We have verified that. The building provides 4 apparatus bays and houses very modern apparatus and equipment that are deployed from the station. The building is located in a good location on a major roadway that provides excellent service response to all 3 member communities. For many years, our fire station was the main station and the only station with full-time staff. Our fire station is no longer the only station within the DAFD coverage area. Today, our station is one of 2 operational fire stations. Webster Township is constructing a new station in their township that will add a full double long bays. The result of these investments by our partners is that we'll have 3 stations, 9 large apparatus bays. All of this is good as our DAFD board is considering adding a 4th firefighter to our daily staffing. As I reflect on all this, my thoughts brought me back to the living and daily work area at our current station. Again, as I reflected on all this, my thoughts brought me back to the living and daily work area of our current station. This is really the area of our station that really needs to be improved. The living area of our station needs to be modernized. It needs to be improved so that we have separate sleeping and restrooms for male and female users. Our opportunity is approaching. We can tear down the small living area on the east side of the current station and construct modern living, sleeping, and daily work areas to serve our department now and into the future. I feel that we can do this cost effectively and within our current means without adding another large millage to our current tax structure. We are also at the appropriate time in our DAFD history to make these improvements. With Webster Township Station projected to open in April 2021, we are approaching a time where these improvements, meaning to the living and sleeping areas, can be made, and the firefighters will have 2 other stations within our district to live/sleep while our station improvements are made. So one of the reasons why I took the extraordinary step of doing a point-by-point rebuttal on that is nowhere in there does it say, hey guys, I was at the DAFD, they said their living quarters stink, they're afraid of getting COVID, and they're living in storage space. And it is the worst living quarters of any of these stations that I visited. So I completely agree with that. So I can completely understand Councilmember Cousins' position that this seems not at relating to us what the DAFD did or what their discussions or concerns are, because it lists that nowhere. This entire thing that I just read out feels very much to me like it's a use of the bully pulpit to convince the community that the actions that council made of designating this other location and this other design is illegitimate and the reason we ought to do that. These discussions are great. Anyone who knows me I love to have a wonderful, full, round, robust debate. But once we vote it, it has to stop. It has to stop. I will continue to put a resolution for us to ensure continued fire protection facility, because as I continue to read that, with Webster Township stations projected to open in April 2021, we are approaching a time where these improvements can be made and the firefighters will have 2 other stations within our district to live/sleep. That means if they're living and sleeping in another station, they're not living and sleeping in our station. And while that may be fine for the district and better for the other communities who have maybe 2 firefighters each instead of 1, that is not acceptable for the city. In addition to the risks it pose to life and limb and property, every single person here who has property insurance will see that go up, because even if we've got a fire truck parked there, if we don't have someone there with the fire truck 24/7, the ratings go up and you're going to be paying more insurance every month for that. So I will be submitting that resolution whether it's adopted or you guys are rid of me. And I am done.
Zach, the only problem with what you're saying is I clarified under my verbal report last meeting on the 28th exactly how I came up with this. And I started from the DAFD thing. Maybe my written report wasn't perfect, but my verbal report clearly clarified why I was making these comments and where they came from. And you can check the DAFD packet and you can find out that topic was covered there. Okay, you are twisting words here. I in no way suggested that if anything happened at that station that we would abandon it.
Well, I
Okay.
didn't say abandoned. I repeated your words. There are 2 other.
You did repeat them. You read the whole thing. And I understand where the suggestion might have been taken, but if you were listening at the last meeting, I clarified differently. And you have taken me to task for the written words that I tried to clarify and have since clarified in my current report. And I'm sorry if I didn't do a good job in my first report or as good a job as I should have, but I tried to correct that in my verbal. And I don't understand why you continue to want to go down that path.
Do you want to guess why a correction verbally is not sufficient?
Excuse me?
Would you care to guess why I feel a verbal correction is not appropriate or satisfactory?
I can rewrite the report if you want me to submit it that way.
Well, can you guess why? Because that's
no, I'm not gonna guess.
Okay, well, I will tell you why then. The reason why a verbal change to something that is, in this case, so far different from what your verbal report was, is that your written report gets promulgated to the DDA, it gets promulgated to the website, and it largely gets printed in the newspaper without any comments or additions to that. So this is the record. It's the only record for many of those groups who do not come in here in the middle of the night and watch our meetings. So words are important.
I agree they are, but I would hope that you would understand what I was saying when I talked to you and the rest of council on an open mic, and then I tried to correct it. I mean, you and I have had this conversation already, but if you feel you need to continue to take me to task, that's fine. But I'm going to debate it every time because I tried to clarify it when I was speaking to you what my report was, and my intention has never been what you're suggesting. So you're just off base there. Okay, who do I need to call on? Mr. Smith?
Yes, just to clarify, my motion there, removing the 2 reports of council members, that was just for tonight. It doesn't remove, prevent future reports being submitted. I would hope that at some point when, council has an organizational meeting again, that we discuss that topic. Determine whether council member is an appropriate place for opinions, or should opinions be submitted as communications? Or, exactly what, we want council member reports to be. And so I think a future council discussion needs to be had in that area. Thank you.
Thank you. And last but not least, Mr. Bell.
I don't have any comments this evening.
Okay, thank you. Let me just get the agenda back up here. Okay, we're back around to non-arranged participation. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak this evening? Marie Sherry has her hand up. Hi, Marie.
Hello, council. Hope you are doing okay tonight. I just wanted to say, I have worked for the city for a very long time now. And I don't think I've ever worked for a better manager than Courtney. She has very much has the respect of her staff because she's earned it and she deserves it. And this is, in my opinion, a huge loss for the city. And I know that I and my coworkers will miss her very much.
Thank you, Marie. Very well said.
She's one of the smartest, most noble, selfless people that I've ever worked for, and I very much appreciated having her as a boss.
And I can echo Marie and Justin's comments, having worked in a number of capacities as a private consultant with a number of communities, as well as with individual communities, and Dexter being the one that I hope to retire from someday, long time from now, guys. What Courtney brought to the table is just unbelievable. Her ability to communicate with people, her intrinsic number capacity, which I do not have and envy greatly. The fact that she's got multiple abilities, and I think it was Justin that just said, or maybe it was Murray, so selfless. I am going to miss her greatly. The person who you choose eventually, both in the interim and permanently, those shoes are going to be very large to fill. She's a team builder. This community, this staff, this council needs somebody who is a team builder. And I hope you'll take that into consideration as you go forward. Courtney, thank you very much for everything.
Thanks, guys.
I agree with everybody in your guys' statement. She's going to be greatly missed. She's done a lot for the community. She's done a lot for me and my 3 departments. And I cannot tell you how much I appreciate Courtney Nichols. It has been a pleasure. And there are going to be some very big shoes. I've been working for the city for a long time, and I'm not even sure of everything and how we're going to fill those holes when Courtney's gone. Courtney, thank you so much.
Thanks, Sam.
Nice words, everybody. Okay, with that, I will seek a motion for adjournment, please.
So moved.
Moved by Smith.
Second.
Mr. Bell, second by Mr. Bell. I'm just going to say all in favor, signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye. Have a good week, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.
Night, everybody.
Good night.
Right.